In a dimly lit room, a man sits across from a young alchemist. He confirms her profession and asks for her name. The young woman, Alice, introduces herself. The man, a mercenary, finds it strange that his golem sensor malfunctioned, realizing it's because she possesses no mana. The mercenary, Jack, explains that she's the first person he's ever seen without mana, and he hoped an alchemist might have some answers. Alice asks what he wishes to know. He replies that it's a long story. The story flashes back a few hours. Codenamed Bomber, Jack tries to contact HQ. He reports that he's retrieved the chip, but has been ambushed by a welcoming party. He urgently requests immediate backup. HQ callously denies his request, telling him to get out of there himself. The mercenary, Jack Aaron, realizes with disgust that he has been betrayed. Furious, Jack vows that they will pay for messing with him. Though it's only him against their forces, he smirks, noting the show they've put on. He activates a detonator he had planted earlier. A massive explosion erupts, decimating the enemy vehicles. Jack watches the carnage through his binoculars with a satisfied grin. He laughs, finding his adversaries entertaining. More soldiers emerge from the wreckage. He decides to see how they'll handle his next present. The soldiers spot Jack in advance. One gets his foot caught in a tripwire, and an explosion rips through their ranks. They realize with horror that he's a bomber who has set traps everywhere. Now wearing a gas mask, Jack announces that the party is just starting. He rolls more canisters towards the soldiers. He tells them to get some sleep, true to his name as a mercenary. A soldier chokes on the gas and fires blindly, cursing Jack. His gun clicks empty as he frantically searches for his target. From out of the smoke, Jack appears and calmly states "here" before shooting the soldier in the head. The remaining soldiers spot Bomber and give chase, ordered not to let him get away with the chip. Their pursuit is cut short as they run straight into a field of landmines. A soldier curses how many traps Jack has laid. Jack laughs, telling the suckers to gather a few hundred more men if they want to take his life, before driving off. Having successfully escaped his pursuers, Jack stops at an abandoned garage. He cracks open a cold drink. He takes a refreshing gulp. Jack considers his next move, thinking the situation is getting too noticeable. Suddenly, a strange energy crackles around him, and he looks around in surprise. A glowing magic circle appears beneath his feet, trapping him. He cries out in shock. He finds himself completely unable to move. In a brilliant flash of light, Jack is violently pulled from his world. He is transported to another place entirely. He finds himself standing in the middle of a grand throne room. He is surrounded by armored guards and observed by nobles from a balcony. Utterly bewildered, Jack sees other people who look like they've also been unwillingly transported. He stares in disbelief, unable to process the bizarre scene. A man welcomes them all as people from another world. He introduces himself as Prime Minister Vilash. He explains that this is a different world from the one they were in. He has summoned them to be a trump card in a war with neighboring countries. While one of the summoned boys is amazed, Vilash confirms his assumption. Vilash declares them great heroes who will become the swords that aid their country. Jack scoffs, wondering if it's some kind of senior prank. Vilash announces he will now confirm their statuses. A status screen appears before a surprised Jack, displaying his name, level and skills, translation and bomb making X++. He concludes that anything goes in this world. He realizes the translation skill is how they're able to communicate. Jack muses that his bomb making X++ skill feels special and that a world that loves a mass-murdering bomber should be good. Vilash is shocked, having never seen an X skill, let alone an X++. He orders a guard to fetch something for Jack. The guard presents Jack with a box of bomb-making ingredients. Vilash, glad that Jack caught on, asks to see him use his X-rank skill. Jack agrees and sits down to work. He begins assembling a device. Jack presents the finished gunpowder bomb, noting that he can read its features. Vilash examines it but sees no difference from a normal bomb. He concludes Jack's skill is only useful for ensuring success in bomb making. Jack realizes his seemingly useful skill is considered trash here. Vilash declares that Jack has a hopeless skill and his upgrades are useless. Vilash turns to the Majesty, deeming Jack the only useless one of the group. The other summoned youths mock Jack for being only level 1 with no other skills. The king agrees that a level 1 isn't even worth their time as a foot soldier. He orders the guards to lead him away. Jack notes that he left his gear at the gas station. Surrounded, Jack feigns surrender, noting that they have the advantage in numbers. Vilash sneers that he could always sell Jack to the slave market if he's truly useless. Jack retorts that it would be a waste. He adds that many would pay good money to hire him. He then suddenly punches the Prime Minister in the face. Jack warns Vilash not to step all over him. Enraged, Vilash reminds Jack of his position. He declares he's going to teach him a lesson. The guards swarm Jack, beating him mercilessly. He grits his teeth, deciding that trying anything now would be bad. He knows that patience is the virtue he needs right now. Vilash taunts him, asking if some sense has been beaten into him yet. As Jack lies beaten on the floor, Vilash and the other summoned heroes laugh mockingly at his plight. Jack glares up at the smug faces looking down on him. He asks if they enjoy looking down on him. With a sudden burst of energy, he throws off the guards, shocking Vilash. He lunges forward and shoves the bomb he made into Vilash's mouth. The Prime Minister stumbles back in shock. Before anyone can react, Jack pulls his pistol and shoots him in the head, detonating the explosive. The other summoned individuals scream in terror at the gruesome scene. Standing over Vilash's remains, Jack reminds them that he told them to keep their heads down. The enraged guards surround Jack. They are ordered to fire. They unleash a volley of shots, forcing him to take cover. Emerging from the smoke, Jack uses a dead guard as a shield, mocking their lack of concern for their friend. He calls one of the guards a level 1 prick. He lunges forward with a knife. Jack moves with incredible speed, effortlessly dispatching the guards. He reveals his true level 1 strength. The king watches in horror, demanding to know who he is. Jack answers by tossing a grenade at the throne as a gift. As the grenade explodes, Jack introduces himself as the bomber mercenary, calling the explosion his business card and quoting his price. The guards shout for someone to get him as he makes his escape. Jack fires a grappling hook. He swings away from the castle. He remarks that his escape is just like a spy movie. An order is given from His Majesty to execute the Otherworld bomber on sight. Now on the run, Jack reflects that the situation has gotten out of hand. He observes the strange mix of cars and horse-drawn carriages in this world. Jack's first thought is to steal a vehicle to escape the city. He feels confident he can handle any guards. But then he hesitates. He frustratedly wonders why he needs an escape plan in the first place. He realizes he's the one who was wronged and shouldn't be the one running. Deciding there's a line they shouldn't have crossed, he turns back towards the castle. He is determined to finish what's left of his revenge. Jack fights his way back into the castle, starting his revenge party. After taking down more guards, he finds a terrified elf woman and asks her what a large object up ahead is. The elf explains that the giant crystal is the city's core, a magic tool controlling the entire imperial capital. A sinister smile forms on Jack's face as he asks if that means he can blow it up. The elf panics, exclaiming that while it's technically possible, destroying the delicate core would blow the entire empire to smithereens. Jack ignores her pleas, focusing only on the fact that it can be done. He decides it's worth a try. Jack claps his hands and a status screen appears for the city's core. It is now collapsing with attributes including remote detonation and city destruction. The elf stares in disbelief. As the elf tries to flee, Jack stops her, asking where she's going since they're now partners in crime. She pleads for her life, saying she already helped him. He agrees that she did help. But then he coldly shoots her anyway. With his work done, Jack heads outside to find a good picnic spot with a view. He encounters 2 guards, investigating the strange magic reaction. He greets one before knocking him out. He then cheerfully asks the other if he can borrow his car. From a safe distance overlooking the city, Jack finds a good spot. He mutters about the people who kept messing with him. He prepares to detonate the core, telling them all to eat it up. A cataclysmic explosion erupts from the heart of the city, sending a massive shockwave outwards. Where the once proud imperial capital stood, now only a smoking crater remains. Jack watches the complete annihilation he has wrought. Surveying the destruction, Jack begins to laugh. He finds the entire situation amazing and can't stop laughing. Jack explains to Alice that he wants to find a way back to his world. That's why he sought out an alchemist, hoping she would know something. After listening, Alice looks at him and concludes that he is a true, unmistakable crazed moron. Jack cheerfully confirms her question about whether he blew up the imperial capital. Alice listens with a deadpan expression. She tells him she isn't in the mood for jokes, but he gives her a thumbs up, insisting he's serious and that it will be big news soon enough. Alice remains skeptical, pointing out that turning the city's core into a bomb is a ridiculous feat. She notes that she senses no mana from him, and he agrees he's no magic user. Jack smirks, revealing he has something special. He presents a floating status board to her, and she asks to take a look. Using a magnifying glass, Alice inspects the board and is shocked to see the skill bomb making X++, admitting he wasn't lying. Jack explains that while A rank is master level and X is legendary, his skill is even beyond that. It is a power beyond mankind's knowledge, capable of turning the unimaginable into reality. Jack feels proud of his power. Alice finds it odd that he acts like it's someone else's problem. He shrugs, saying it was given to him unprompted, though he's starting to like it. The scene then flashes back to a few hours earlier, after the city's bombing. In the past, Jack stands by his wrecked getaway car, wondering what to do now. He laments his habit of mass murder when provoked, wishing he'd asked for a way home first. He curses, having realized he forgot his cigarettes. A status board appears, showing his name, a shocking level of 385 and a karma of -600. He mutters that this world is weird, but figures if they could summon him, they can send him back. Jack is stunned by his new stats, having been level 1 just moments before. He realizes the massive experience gain must have come from blowing up the city. He finds this odd, recalling that games in his world usually cap levels at 99. Then a thought strikes him and he readies himself. To test his newfound power, Jack leaps into the air with incredible force, his jump shattering the ground beneath him. He lands with a powerful impact, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. He picks up a large rock and is amazed as he effortlessly crushes it in his hand. He laughs, realizing that leveling up has also dramatically increased his physical capabilities. Feeling like a superhero, Jack celebrates his new power. He suddenly realizes he should test if he can fly. His powerful jump confirms he can't fly, but he's pleased, boasting he could break an Olympic record. Deciding he's had enough fun, he resolves to run and find the nearest town. Back in the present, Alice calls his story ridiculous. However, she confirms his status board shows no signs of forgery. Alice asks if he was questioned before. Jack explains he had an encounter with guards at the town gate. The guards react with shock and alarm to Jack's stats, particularly his -600 karma. They deem his level 385 fake and brand him as dangerous. Jack explains that when pushed into a corner by such a warm welcoming, he had no choice but to react. Alice asks how he managed to get past them. The flashback shows Jack fighting the guards. He then tosses his last grenade towards them as a parting gift. He explains to a bewildered Alice that he gave them something precious, which convinced them to let him through. Alice asks what he did after entering the town, and Jack explains he was looking for a way home. He was approached by some shady-looking locals offering to help. The scene flashes back to him holding one of the men at gunpoint, who desperately suggests he seek out a witch who might know space magic. Jack questions the man about the witch. The man explains she is an alchemist in town who sells potions. Rumors of her immense power spread. After several would-be robbers tried to break into her home and were never seen again, no one has dared to mess with her. Back in the present, Jack remarks that he thought witches were supposed to be ugly old hags. Alice says she is curious about his skills. She changes the subject and invites him to join her for supper, an offer which Jack enthusiastically accepts. Alice happily goes to prepare the meal. Alice claps her hands twice. Jack looks on in confusion. His confusion turns to shock as a group of strange, robotic-looking golems suddenly appears, surrounding their table and serving a full meal. Jack asks what the strange servants are. Alice explains that they are golems. She adds that they were created by her and follow her commands. Jack compares them to robots and Alice agrees, though she calls them her servants. He notes that the food looks very much like food from his world. The food smells great and seems poison-free, making him wonder if Alice has a crush on him. He recalls the ominous rumors about her cottage being a place of no return. He decides to stay on guard, ready to fight back if she tries anything. Jack takes a bite and exclaims that the food is amazing. He comments that it's delicious but could use a little salt. As he continues to eat, Alice brings the conversation back to the main topic, how to get him back to his world. Regarding repatriation magic, Alice concludes that while it is not impossible, it is definitely difficult. She explains that they would first need to confirm the spell's procedure, which requires research equipment and materials. To accomplish this, they would need support from a large organization like a country. Jack sighs, recognizing that this is the same information he had already gathered. To return, he would need complex space-related magic, the secrets of which are closely guarded by the great countries. Still, he focuses on Alice's words that it is not impossible. Jack realizes he needs materials and equipment from a country. He is reluctant to work as a mercenary for one, doubting it would go as planned. He reflects that since becoming a bomber in this world, he cannot mask his identity with his status board. Besides, he hates the restraints that come with serving a country. A dark thought crosses Jack's mind. He could use his trump card to implode another city's core. He struggles with the temptation, reasoning that a bomber couldn't resist if every country had such a weakness. When Alice asks what he is stressing about, he gives a vague reply. Suddenly, a loud magical noise erupts from outside. Jack and Alice are startled by the sound. Alice explains that something must have triggered the spell on her gates. The spell is installed to ward off intruders. Alice mentions that Jack walked through the barrier with no problem, which confuses him. He recalls the painful shock from when he first arrived. He had dismissed it as static electricity at the time. Alice explains she made the ward strong enough to knock out normal people, but it wasn't enough for someone of his high level. She observes that he seems to be fine. The intruder, Kujiminda, stumbles over the gate after being shocked. Alice asks if the strangely dressed man is Jack's friend. Kuji looks up and recognizes Jack with a look of pure rage. Kuji is flanked by shadowy figures, while another person lies unconscious nearby. Jack recognizes the familiar face, shocked that Kuji survived the capital's explosion. Kuji points furiously at Jack, screaming that he has finally found him and demanding he come down at once. Jack tells Alice to excuse him as he prepares to confront his unexpected visitor. Down below, Kuji adjusts his tie, his face a mask of intense frustration, declaring that he has something to do. As Jack prepares to leave, Alice warns him to be careful, which he casually acknowledges. Watching him go, Alice thinks to herself that he might be a very dangerous person. Alice further warns Jack that the intruder outside is furious, filled with an immense hatred for him. Jack coolly agrees to be careful as he steps out to confront his foe. Alice tells him to return safely, reminding him that she still has more questions. Outside, Kujiminda greets Jack, who immediately realizes this won't be a friendly chat and mentally checks his remaining ammo. The two men face off in the street. Jack expresses his surprise that Kuji survived the explosion, while Kuji notes that Jack seems to be just fine. Kuji furiously declares that he's been looking for Jack, accusing him of blowing up the imperial capital. Jack calmly confirms the accusation, stating his victims got what they deserved. This admission only enrages Kuji further. Kuji demands to know if Jack feels any remorse for all the deaths he caused. Jack scoffs, stating that remorse has nothing to do with him. He explains that he has been a feared bomber since his previous world and lost track of his kill count a long time ago. Jack dismisses the idea of guilt as unbecoming of a mercenary and asks how Kuji is still alive. Kuji scoffs, recalling the sheer power of the explosion that leveled the city. He explains that he, like all the other reincarnated people, survived the blast thanks to a special skill he possesses. Kuji warns Jack that he's not the only one with powerful cheat skills. He reveals that all the other reincarnated individuals are scheming to take Jack down. Jack is intrigued that the morons who mocked him are still alive due to their cheat skills. He declares that the thought of blowing up all the survivors is so exciting he wouldn't be satisfied otherwise. Jack wonders why Kuji would reveal such crucial information, spoiling the element of surprise. Kuji furiously explains that his goal is to plant a seed of despair in Jack. He wants to make him deeply regret everything he has done. Kuji confidently states that sharing information doesn't matter, as Jack is a dead man anyway. Acknowledging his opponent's confidence, Jack muses that in another world, Kuji might have given up revenge. But now it's too late, and he invites the tough guy to come at him. Jack threatens to blow Kuji to pieces. Enraged, Kuji calls him a crazed madman. He declares his intent to act as the Empire capital's hero, defeat Jack, and return to his own world to live peacefully, reflecting that he's not one to get into trouble. A flashback reveals Kuji's lifelong philosophy of carefully observing others to avoid their mistakes. He always viewed those who got into trouble as pathetic failures. This philosophy guided him until his life at work culminated in him being accused of selling company secrets. Kuji remembers his downfall, blaming everyone but himself for not seeing his potential. When his pleas for recognition went unanswered, a light appeared, offering him a new life. He viewed this reincarnation as a second chance to regain his honor. Believing Jack has ruined this chance, he charges, only for Jack to tell him to hold up. Jack calmly stops the fight to ask for Kuji's name. The confused Kuji asks why. Jack explains with a smirk that he needs it to build his grave. He then suddenly opens fire. To Jack's astonishment, his bullet stopped dead in midair, inches from Kuji's face. An invisible force repels the attack, sending a shocked Jack flying backward. Picking himself up, Jack realizes the bullets were deflected. He asks about the interesting magic Kuji possesses. Kuji proudly reveals his skill, Perfect Reflection A+, which reflects any damage aimed at him back at the attacker doubled. Kuji boasts that this skill is how he survived the capital's explosion and declares himself undefeated. He proudly introduces himself as Minder Kuji, telling Jack to remember the name for when he's in hell. Jack calmly thanks him for the information, noting the conclusion of their fight is near. Jack promises to remember the name as he lunges forward, but his punch is reflected, injuring his own hand. Undeterred, he fires his gun again, but Kuji's skill deflects the bullets once more, proving useless. Kuji screams for Jack to die as he charges with his sword. Jack pulls the trigger, but the gun just clicks. A triumphant grin spreads across Kuji's face as he realizes Jack is out of bullets. Despite taking a hit, Kuji insists that any attack is pointless against him. He boasts about his superior strength and level 80 status. Jack quietly asks for Kuji's level, then calmly reveals his own is 385, leaving Kuji stunned and accusing him of lying. Kuji recovers, reasoning that Jack's higher level simply means more damage will be reflected back. Jack analyzes the situation, realizing that attacking Kuji half-heartedly would be suicidal. He notes that Kuji is a complete amateur in combat. Dodging Kuji's clumsy strikes, Jack knows he has to find another way. He wonders how he is going to kill him now. Frustrated, Kuji screams at Jack to give up. He insists Jack can't win and must accept his judgment. Unfazed, Jack taunts him for keeping people waiting and asks if they can finally finish the fight. Kuji dismisses Jack's confidence, claiming he has no chance. Jack coolly advises him against thinking he's unbeatable. He warns that arrogance only leads to destruction as he rushes forward to prove his point. In a swift move, Jack grabs Kuji's face. He tells Kuji he's about to learn what destruction feels like firsthand as he tackles him to the ground. Jack explains he will put Kuji in a painless chokehold. This is how he plans to work through the perfect reflect ability. By simply restraining him with a slight touch, there will be no damage for the skill to reflect. Kuji struggles to break free, but Jack holds him firm. Jack mockingly calls it a hug from a fan. He then pulls out a stick of dynamite. Calling it a souvenir, he calmly lights the fuse. Jack shoves the lit explosive into Kuji's mouth. He tells him not to be picky and to eat up. He casually mentions it's just a low-power firecracker he acquired earlier, one that wouldn't even cause a dent. Jack reminds Kuji that the reflected damage will be doubled. The explosion might be weak at first, but with enough doubling it will become immense. He sadistically taunts Kuji, wondering how long he can withstand the escalating internal agony. Kuji writhes in agony. Jack notes with annoyance that the explosive is now in his stomach, where the horrific cycle continues. Kuji's body begins to swell grotesquely from the internal blasts. Jack mockingly asks if he wants to be saved. He suggests Kuji beg for forgiveness and treat him as a friend, as onlookers wonder about the noise. Sarcastically addressing his new friend, Jack proposes a game of catch to commemorate their bond. The catch is that the horribly bloated Kuji will be the ball. He then hurls him into the air, telling him to enjoy every last second. A massive explosion erupts in the sky. Below, Jack stands alone, watching the fiery aftermath of his handiwork. Jack laughs maniacally, celebrating his victory. He calls it an astonishing trickshot that made the ball disappear, lamenting that it's a one-time performance. The gathered crowd screams in horror at the gruesome spectacle. Annoyed by their reaction, Jack scolds the weird crowd for causing a scene. Jack returns to the cottage, casually greeting Alice. She welcomes him back. Alice notes his injuries with concern, but he laughs it off, saying he just needs a drink and some rest. Alice informs him they have no alcohol here. She tells him to wash the blood off before coming inside, which he hadn't planned for. Alice tells Jack to make himself at home, and he thanks her for the hospitality, though he questions if he really has time to relax with a bath. He reflects that the locals already avoid speaking of the witch or getting on her bad side, and the recent spectacle has only intensified their terror. Alice formally welcomes Jack to her humble mansion, offering him a place to stay. While soaking in a bath, Jack reflects that this is far better than sleeping in an abandoned house, and he couldn't possibly turn down her offer. He questions her kindness, finding it unusual. He knows her as Alice the alchemist, but the rumors about her are still a mystery, and her behavior seems strangely out of touch with reality. Jack knows he isn't the kind of person others like, so he believes her actions are not out of the kindness of her heart. He concludes there must be some other reason for her hospitality. He briefly entertains the thought that she might jump him in the shower, but dismisses it. When he emerges from the bathroom, he's greeted by the sight of Alice's servants. He asks them what they are doing. Confused, he watches as they silently file out of the room. He finds his clothes have been neatly washed and folded. He is surprised to find them not only washed, but also dry-cleaned. He muses on what an attentive woman she is. He greets Alice, thanking her for cleaning his clothes, and notes to himself that she is a force to be reckoned with. Alice is surprised to see that his wound has already healed. Jack touches his cheek, realizing she's right. He figures his high-level recovery rate is responsible, noting that even the soreness in his limbs is gone. Since he doesn't need healing, Alice offers to show him to his room. Alice shows him to a guest room, which Jack notes looks very comfortable. She then asks what she should call him. He tells her she can call him Jack or Aaron, he doesn't mind either way. She decides to address him as Jackson. Alice tells Jackson that he has a strong spirit, and she likes that. Jack laughs it off, saying most would call that insensitive or arrogant. Alice explains that he's a very rare specimen, and her interest was piqued ever since she first laid eyes on him, prompting her to invite him to her mansion. Jack looks at her with suspicion. Jack playfully asks if it's a case of love at first sight. He jokes about the burden of being handsome, but Alice clarifies that she simply likes mad people like him. She elaborates that she finds it entertaining to gaze into the filth of his soul. He decides to take her strange comment as a compliment. He thinks back to her comment about his soul. He asks her about her ability to see the hatred in the other man, and she explains that she can see the hues of emotions and spirits, which is not quite mind-reading. Jack remarks that it's a convenient power, and Alice tells him it's getting late and they should talk more tomorrow. They wish each other a good night. The next morning, Jack is awoken by a knock on his door. He sits up in bed as Alice stands nearby. He casually greets her. Alice wishes him a good morning in return. She tells him that breakfast is ready and they should go dine. Jack thinks to himself that her waking him up seems innocent enough, and if she had other plans, she would have told him by now. Over breakfast, Alice asks him how the food is. He tells her it's delicious, and if there were a restaurant that served it, he'd be a regular. Alice explains that she tried using heavier seasoning today because he didn't seem satisfied with yesterday's meal. Jack is surprised she caught that and apologizes for his comment. She tells him not to worry, as her own sense of taste is weak, and she wouldn't have known what flavor was appropriate. She then asks what his plans are moving forward. Jack says he'll be returning to his world, but there's something else he needs to take care of first. He reveals his plan to murder the other reincarnated people, now that he knows they are plotting revenge for his destruction of the imperial capital. He feels he must get to the root of the problem, and Alice, while noting the difficulty, says she will be cheering for him. After the meal, Alice gets up from the table. She asks if she can see more of his skills. She explains her high curiosity about his bomb-making ability, and he agrees to show her if she provides the materials. Alice tells him to come this way. Alice shows him into her laboratory, explaining that this is where she brews her potions and that there are explosive materials here as well. Jack looks over the various ingredients on the shelves. He wonders how he's supposed to distinguish them, noting that just because he can read the labels doesn't mean he understands what they do. She explains that one vial contains a magic liquid made with mana, necessary for magic tools and fuel. The higher its purity, the more expensive it is. She holds up another jar, warning that it contains bodily fluids from a magic beast and a slight touch can cause a severe burn. Alice points out a flammable vegetable liquid used to brew wine, and Jack jokes that there go his Friday night plans. With her explanations, Jack can now identify some materials that could be used for bombs. Alice gives him a recipe with specific mixing amounts and tells him to bottle it, add a fuse, and let it solidify. She adds that it's quite difficult to use, making it a perfect test for his skills, while Jack asks if he just needs to craft it. He looks at the recipe, utterly confused by the instructions. Alice asks what's wrong. Jack questions her, asking if the mixing ratio isn't wrong. She tells him of course not, asserting that she's an alchemist and he should trust her. Jack reluctantly agrees, saying he'll give it a try. 5 minutes later, Jack has created 3 experimental magic bombs. He inspects his work. He concludes that the performance is not bad, better than a firecracker, though not comparable to the city's core. Alice watches him silently. Alice inspects the finished product, amazed. She tells Jack that his success is amazing, especially since he used an improper mixing ratio. She explains that the recipe was one that no man had ever successfully followed, and making 3 is simply impossible. Jack realizes why he had a bad feeling about the recipe. She gave him a recipe doomed to fail, just to test his skill. He asks if she's happy now, explaining that his skill would ensure the success of the bomb making regardless. He states that while the test is over, the bomb's use is simply unparalleled. Alice quietly confirms his assessment. Alice calls out to Jackson. She tells him there's something she wants to ask him. Jack figures they're finally at the main course and tells her not to be shy and go ahead. Alice looks at Jack and states that she wants to destroy this world. She asks if he would be kind enough to lend her a helping hand with her wish. Jack is stunned into silence by Alice's absurd request. After a moment of disbelief, he asks if he heard her correctly. With a steady gaze, Alice confirms her desire to destroy this world and formally asks for his help. Intrigued, Jack considers her proposal. He asks for more details first, so Alice suggests they discuss the matter over tea. Once settled, she begins to tell him a story about a certain dark mage from long ago. Alice explains that this dark mage had a grand ambition, but was limited by her mortal lifespan. Disgusted by this limitation, the mage created a forbidden technique to overcome it. This forbidden technique was a spell of reincarnation, allowing her to inherit her power and knowledge in her next life. Refusing to accept death as an end, she treated it as a mere milestone in her journey. Jack is impressed, calling the idea awesome and assuming the mage must have become a monster by now. Alice corrects him, explaining that the mage was actually adamant about remaining human. She refused to seek immortality, wishing only to achieve her goal as a human. Pondering this, Jack begins to piece the story together. With a knowing smirk, Jack correctly guesses that Alice is the reincarnation of that dark mage. Alice calmly confirms his suspicion. Alice clarifies that while she is the dark mage's next life, she is not the same person. She explains that although she inherited the mage's power and will, she is mentally a completely different being. Jack realizes this means the original mage's ego is gone, and Alice confirms it. Alice continues, explaining that the first mage understood her own mediocrity and feared her ego would prevent growth. She believed that spontaneous and irregular growth, cultivated through countless lives and experiences, was the true path to evolution. She reveals that she is the 13th life, possessing inherited skills such as alchemy from the 2nd life, golem magic from the 6th, and magic tool craftsmanship from the 9th. In her current life, she has also gained a unique spiritual sensation. Jack marvels at the willpower required for such a plan, noting that she will get stronger with every new life. He comments on the weird brains of geniuses, connecting it to her ultimate goal of destroying the world. Alice corrects him, saying she isn't a genius, but merely the recipient of a gift. She then states her true goal is to become the greatest alchemist ever by destroying the world. Jack is completely baffled by her logic, questioning how world destruction relates to being the greatest alchemist. Alice explains her twisted reasoning. If she destroys the world, no one will ever be born to surpass her, cementing her status as the greatest for all time. Finally understanding the insane scope of her ambition, Jack tells Alice he gets her story now. Jack calls her a true mad scientist. He admits that he knew she wasn't a normal kid. But now he understands that she's a far more dangerous monster than he could have imagined. When Alice asks if he finds her disgusting, Jack enthusiastically denies it. He declares her determination amazing. He expresses his genuine respect, adding that it's not evil to pursue one's goals at the expense of others. However, the moment you are defeated, you become the villain. Jack explains his own worldview. From one perspective, achieving your dream by eliminating all obstacles makes you righteous. In a world where the strong consume the weak, only the victors can walk free. Alice thanks him, visibly pleased that someone finally understands her. She then moves on to her proposal, stating that she has a lot of knowledge and talent to offer. Alice offers a deal. She can provide bomb-making equipment and magical knowledge, promising to help Jack return to his world. In exchange, she wants his help to destroy this one. Jack clarifies her request, asking if she wants him to plant a bomb that will blow up the entire world. She calls his bomb-making skill a crucial key and an opportunity she cannot miss. Alice asks Jack to lend her the power he used to destroy the imperial capital. Extending her hand, she formally asks him to help her destroy the world as he considers her offer. A wide grin spreads across Jack's face. He admits that destroying the world is outside his usual pay grade, but it's definitely an interesting proposition. He accepts her offer. He adds that he looks forward to working with her. Jack tells Alice he's glad to be working with her, anticipating that his life in this world is about to become very interesting. Alice shares his sentiment, glad to have found a partner. They shake on their new partnership, agreeing to help each other from now on. With their alliance formed, Jack is ready to pursue their goals, stating that as long as he gets home, anything goes. Alice agrees, thinking that while he's a lunatic, their goals don't conflict. They both have a feeling that as the craziest duo, things are about to get fun. As they prepare for war, Jack asks Alice if he can use the mixing room. He explains that whether it's for her goal or his own, having a weapon would make him feel much safer. Alice agrees, stating she has carefully examined his skills and trusts him with the task. Alice tells Jack she will be downstairs if he needs anything. Jack knows he must keep an eye on her, wary that she might betray him if she discovers a way to destroy the world without his bombs. He muses on her astounding persistence, feeling like a simple bomber in comparison to her grand, centuries-long plan. Inside the workshop, Jack assesses his meager supplies, an empty gun and a broken knife. He feels uneasy with such limited equipment. He laments that he left his fully stocked weapon bag behind when he was transported to this world. Deciding there's no point crying over spilled milk, he resolves to think positively. He recalls being thrown into the snow with nothing but his underwear, a horrible experience. Compared to that, staying here is pretty nice. Now he has clothes, food, a roof, and a bomb-making room. He is confident that with his bomb-making expertise, he can craft what he needs, even using the strange materials of this new world. He completes a makeshift tear gas bomb. Jack notes that while quality differs based on materials, his skill guarantees a successful craft. He decides to continue experimenting with a lot of the materials available. From the doorway, Alice quietly observes him at work. After crafting an assortment of bombs, Jack stretches, acknowledging that it's not much but it's honest work. An idea strikes him. He wants to try making a magic bomb. He realizes that using magic would be a great help against enemies from both worlds. He decides to get Alice to lend him her knowledge for the sake of science. Heading downstairs, Jack calls out for Alice. He stops short, suddenly bewildered. He is shocked to see a massive army of soldiers has surrounded the house. Jack panics, wondering why an entire army is outside. Alice appears on the stairs, calling his name. She calmly informs him that the army is coming. He demands to know what she knows about this. She states that she is merely an artisan and speculates that the army must be here for him. Jack and Alice listen as the commander repeats his demand to surrender. The commander shouts that if he resists, his life will be at risk. Alice looks at Jack with concern. He, however, simply smiles back at her. He tells her, "All right then." With a look of grim determination, he grabs his newly made explosives and declares that it is war. Jack scoffs at the idea of fearing for his life, declaring that they should be fearing for theirs. As Jack prepares to rush out, Alice grabs him, urging him to wait. She advises they escape immediately, as killing all the soldiers would take too much time. Jack counters that the army won't leave them alone even if they do escape, so he'd have to murder them all to make a path. Unfazed, Alice tells him she has transportation covered and instructs him to follow her. Alice leads Jack to a large sliding door, telling him this is the first time she's ever shown this room to anyone. They step into the dark room. Jack turns on a light to see what's inside. A sleek, modern-looking car stands before them. Jack is stunned, asking what it is, while Alice explains it's a special vehicle made from a combination of 10 golems. Jack marvels at the vehicle, realizing it's superior to a horse in every way. Alice mentions she prepared it for future travel, but the day has come earlier than intended. Thrilled, Jack exclaims how glad he is to be collaborating with a genius like her. When Alice humbly calls herself a mere successor, Jack is not having it. He grabs her shoulders and insists that she is great, telling her to get out of here with that humility. Alice looks at Jack, a bit taken aback by his praise. Jack grins mischievously. He whistles as he loads their gear into the car. Alice observes that he's a good man, especially with the ladies. He tells her to pack her stuff and get ready to get some reactions out of the soldiers. She agrees, asking what good a ride is if you do not flex it. The soldiers outside struggle against the mansion's defenses, with the commander berating his men for their incompetence. A soldier points out that this is literally a witch hut. Another soldier expresses disbelief that their target would seek shelter in such a place. Suddenly, golems burst from the ground and begin attacking the soldiers. The soldiers cry out in alarm as they are assaulted by the golems. As they load the car, Alice notes that the golems won't hold the army back for long, while Jack remarks on how handy they are. Alice hands Jack the keys to the vehicle. They get into the car, ready to make their escape. As he starts it, he grins, loving the crisp sound of the engine. Alice asks if he needs autopilot, but Jack confidently replies that he will drive them through the crowd himself. Alice confesses to feeling an indescribable nervousness. Jack jokes that he's nervous too, since it's a car date. Alice announces she's about to open the wall and asks if he's ready, to which he confirms. She places her hand on the wall, preparing to use her magic. The wall explodes outward as the soldiers look up in shock. As the car launches, Jack tells Alice to be careful not to bite her tongue, announcing that their fun drive is about to begin. The soldiers below stare in disbelief as the vehicle soars towards them. The car crashes down onto the soldiers, who scream in pain. Alice wonders about seatbelts, while Jack laughs, relieved that they had some soft cushions to land on. With a crazed look, he declares they'll just slam their way out of the city. The army commander stands in their path, shocked as the car barrels towards him. He orders them to halt, accusing Jack of destroying the imperial capital. Jack coldly tells him to shut his hole. He asks if the commander can do anything other than talk shit before running him over. As blood splatters across the windshield, Alice calmly points out that their view is blocked. Jack activates the wipers to clear the screen. They share a silent, slightly awkward moment before continuing their drive. The remaining soldiers shout for them not to get away, but Jack remarks that he can still see fine and to consider the blood a decoration. Alice notes she will remember to improve it as they depart with fresh blood. In a dimly lit room,